Welcome to Alberta Conservation Association's Harvest Your Own podcast, the resource for everything hunting, navigating through the field, the butcher shop, and the kitchen. Life is all about great food. Let's get started.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Brad Fenson, an avid outdoor enthusiast who has worked as a freelance journalist, photographer, and public speaker for over 3 decades. I have hunted, fished, and foraged all my life and hope to share my passion for the outdoors. Along the way, I want to encourage everyone to harvest wild proteins and enjoy the satisfaction of providing the next meal for your family. Our goal is to educate, entertain, and inspire individuals to get outdoors and create a connection between food, health, and your future meals. Today, I'd like to welcome Linda Zimmerling to the podcast. Linda's a hunter, angler, mother, biologist, purveyor of hunts, landowner relations specialist, and collector of big bucks once in a while, even though most of the time we go out for a backstrap or some Heinz or sausage meat. You've been fairly fortunate in the last couple of years.
I have been very fortunate, both with waterfowl and with large game. Yes, it's been good hunting.
Right. Tell us a little bit about Linda Zimmerling. How would you describe yourself?
Well, I'm pretty low-key now. I'm retired and have been for quite a few years already. So, yeah, my days aren't too busy. I like to spend time with the dogs and be outside when the weather permits. But other than that, I mean, small errands that keep a house running. But, yeah, it's pretty low-key around me now.
Right. The dogs are a big part of the hunt often, and that could be another show altogether, is training and keeping a dog year-round for those 3 months that you actually get to put it to good use. But you've done a great job with your dog, Kona. I enjoy hunting over her immensely. And like I said, we'll have to maybe bring you back to talk about that and the steps you go through from pup to what we would call a finished dog that you take out in the field.
Yeah, and for sure, I mean, with respect to dogs, it's different every dog. I mean, we now have an older lab and then a younger chessador, and both very, very different on the hunt and in their skill level.
Right. So a question I like to ask all the guests when they come in is, how did you get involved in hunting?
I got involved in hunting already in my late teens. I was dating someone in high school. Maybe familiar. His name is Todd Zimmerling. And he hunted. And so he took me out waterfowl hunting. And for the first few times, I just watched. And then I shot his gun a few times, which was probably not the best thing to do because he's 6 foot, almost 200 pounds, and I'm 5'2" and nowhere near that. And so shooting his gun probably wasn't the best, but I still enjoyed it. And eventually got my own little 20 gauge. And started with waterfowl, eased into it, grouse. And then I started going along just pushing bush on larger game hunts and watching how that whole system worked. And eventually I was confident enough and interested enough that I started harvesting the large game as well, and I'm actually pretty good at it.
I'd say you are. And could you imagine going a year now without going out hunting?
No, I truly can't.
It really becomes, it's more than a hobby. It's part of your lifestyle. It defines you, who you are, what you do, what you appreciate in life, where your next meal comes from.
Well, and definitely, like I was asked one time, what was your best hunting experience? And actually the one I come up with, we didn't even harvest anything that day. We were out. The conditions were just beautiful, calm. It was winter. The snow was falling, and it was large, heavy flakes, and it was just quiet and peaceful. And, you know, I saw a few animals and birds and things like that, but didn't see anything that we were going to harvest that day. But still, that's what memory comes up when I think of my best outing for hunting.
Yeah, and that's interesting because lots of people love the outdoors and the outdoor lifestyle, camping and all the rest of it, and haven't taken up hunting. But hunting really takes you to that next level, and what it does is it catapults you into the outdoors on a regular basis, and you get to see a lot more and appreciate a lot more than what you do if you're just an avid outdoors person, because you just get out more often.
Well, and I really enjoy the connection to the food itself. Like now, when I serve a meal, I know I harvested those geese. I know I harvested that moose, and You know, when I put a meal on the table that includes potatoes from my garden, beans, peas, whatever that I grew, along with a moose roast, like it just feels so awesome.
Yes, I can relate to that because I do that on a daily basis myself. You met Todd in your teens. Did you grow up in a family that ate wild game?
Not at all.
Not at all. And had you ever tried it as a kid? Do you remember anyone ever bringing some to the family and saying, you know, here's a venison roast or a moose roast?
I do not.
Not at all. So that was a big turning point in your life.
Yeah, it was unique, and to be mean but fair, Todd's mother really was not that great at cooking wild game, and so my first experience actually eating wild game probably wasn't as positive as it could have been, but I have since learned that it can be prepared incredibly tasty and delicious and tender, and I love cooking and serving it now.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's mean at all. My mom was over here the other night and we were discussing some of these topics, and she's like, oh, we didn't know how to cook wild game back in our day like that. You know, we normally put it in a pot and cooked it well done, and that's pretty much how it tasted. So things have come a long ways. Wild game is now, it's pretty vogue. People are, you know, that have never hunted, coming from families that don't hunt, are going out, trying to source their own proteins and get involved in hunting. I brought you in primarily for some of the skills you have. I'd like to focus this podcast on gaining access to private lands. You know, the old-fashioned way. You go out, knock on the door, ask permission, and, you know, nowadays it might be COVID-19. You might be looking up their phone number, giving them a call. But do you recall the first time you got access for hunting? And were you by yourself or with someone?
No, I was with someone. We had the big landowner map on our lap while we drove, and then when we found the waterfowl in the field, then we tried to see, okay, who owns that land? And then the next step was finding, all right, well, they don't live on this piece, so where do they live? And then, finding their homestead. And then it was stopping in and saying, hello, we've noticed you've got a great field full of waterfowl. Would you allow our family to hunt and harvest some waterfowl? That's definitely how it started.
Well, it's pretty intimidating for a lot of people, but we're just going to provide a little bit of information to our listeners where they can go to find more about hunting, harvesting your own, and even gaining access.
This podcast is produced for Harvest Your Own, a program dedicated to those who want to reconnect with food and health through their experiences outdoors. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a resource for individuals to learn more about hunting and the outdoors. There's information to get you started and ensure that your compass stays pointed in the right direction to be successful. Where's your next meal coming from?
Well, I think we can both say we know where our next meal is coming from. It's probably from our fridge or freezer, and like you said, with the gardens being ready this time of year, it's a great time to fill your table with your own collected proteins and vegetables and stuff. Let's give the listeners a little bit of an idea of what it's like to go up and approach a landowner, because a lot of people say they've told me, I just don't hunt private land because I'm too intimidated. I get so nervous having to go up and ask someone for permission that they just give up and go find something else or hunt a pond where they don't have to get permission.
Yeah, and we've definitely pond hopped on Ducks Unlimited land and things like that. But when you see the large flock on a private landowners, you're just like, I gotta get onto that field. And I think that's what drove me to try and talk to landowners. And I think I can't remember my first knock on the door, but I've always been a friendly, social person, and I think they open the door and you're smiling and you're excited about what you want to do. And hopefully that comes across to them and they feel maybe almost part of your enthusiasm for harvesting the waterfowl. And my experience has been they're almost happy to get part of that feeling that you have from them. So you're sharing your passion and they're like, oh, I can be a part of that? Okay, yes.
Yeah, there's certainly mixed emotions you meet with different landowners. Some are all in favor of hunting, some aren't, some are saving it for family. But to draw that picture that you talk about, that excitement, you're out spotting and you find that field with 10,000 snow geese, and there's mallards and there's lessers and specks, and I mean, as a hunter, it makes your heart race, and you just get so excited that you must show up at the door just beaming with enthusiasm, which has to help you. We don't always find the 10,000 bird shoot, but it all adds up in the end. We get out, we do lots of hunting, and I actually have to thank you. Over the years, you spend a lot of time spotting, and I get invited on your coattails, basically, and on Todd's coattails to go along and hunt with you, which I sincerely appreciate. Let's give our listeners a little bit of an idea about what you do to get ready. Okay, I want to go bird hunting on Saturday. It's Thursday afternoon. Is that when you start? Is Thursday or Wednesday or Friday? What is your average approach to finding a field and getting access?
Yeah, well, obviously it'll relate to your own schedule, but I think probably 2 days in advance is the best, just to get a sense of where they are. And then probably if you find some birds, go again the following day if you can, because what you know when you spot geese is where they were.
Right.
So it's kind of a benefit if you can go again and you can see, are they returning there? Are they kind of enjoying that spot so much that they'll probably be there again one more day? So
right, that confirmation and identifying that X where they're going to land. Why do they want that specific hilltop or beside that wetland? You know, lots of times we get out there, we'll see that the combine wasn't as efficient and left a lot more peas on the ground, or maybe we had some late rains and part of it is a flooded barley swath, and all of a sudden it makes sense. We know why those ducks were there, but you know, you go out a couple days ahead of time. If you got 2 days to confirm things and watch the bounce and see what they're going to do over a couple days, it's always beneficial because it helps make sure that you put you on the X. Plus, the birds can often build up in numbers. So when you head out from home, what are you taking with you as a spotter and a hunter going out to find a shoot for yourself, family, and friends?
Well, not that this is an advertisement for iHunter, but I love that app. I have my phone on a stand in front of me, so I don't have to look at it constantly, but I have the iHunter app up along with a purchased landowner map. So as I'm driving, I can quickly look over and I can see who the landowner is on the field beside me. And then when I find the birds, I do a stop and I quickly mark where I've seen them. And then that gives me a chance to see, okay, who is this landowner? Have I spoken to them before? If they're brand new, the process is probably a little bit different. But essentially, it's okay, who is the landowner? You might have to use Alberta 411 to find the number, but if I've been there before, I have the number. And then it's a phone call now, especially with COVID, but even now more and more, it's a phone call just to say, hello, my name is Linda Zimmerling and our family hunts ducks and geese, and you have a whole pile on your field, and would you be kind enough to let us access your field and hunt some waterfowl? And generally, I get really positive responses. Sometimes they're very concerned about vehicles in the field or how many hunters you're going to have. And so I don't try and overload them with too much justification for why they should let us on their field. But if they ask, I will certainly say, if it's a concern to you, we will walk our decoys in. If it's a concern to you, you know, there will only be, you know, however many of us out there, and just trying to calm them that we're not going to damage your field. We're going to be respectful. And I think that's...
Leave it the way you found it, right?
Yeah, leave it the way or better. Like, definitely, I know sometimes there's swathed fields and the birds are in there thick as thieves, and the farmers, the landowners actually want you to move the geese off of there, but they don't want you damaging their crops. So if you can, you know, express to them that you will move the swaths, move through, not drive, you know, put up your decoys, clear out, pick up all your shells, casings and everything. It goes a long way to calm them and let them know that you are, in fact, thinking what their concerns are and that you're going to be respectful.
Yes, no trace hunting is a very good philosophy to follow. Pick up any extra garbage you find and leave it better than the way you found it. And most of the time, landowners will welcome you back. And I wouldn't be ashamed to say I use iHunter too, but I'm pretty old school. I still have a lot of the the county maps that are probably 4 feet wide and 3 feet tall that you fold up and you're always trying to find where you are, or you have somebody with you in the vehicle trying to follow along on the roads and identify the landowners and hope that the map was updated. But another thing that I've done over the years is most of the counties and municipalities actually provide a landowner map on their website. So you can go down or download it as a PDF onto your phone or an iPad or something that's a little bit bigger to read and take it with you as well. So having those landowner contacts is imperative because you can't access private land unless you have permission. You know, you run the risk of having problems with trespass and losing your hunting rights in the future. And it's just common respect. We all have property, whether it's our house or yards, and we don't want people just showing up out of the blue to utilize it. We want to know who's there. So those landowner contacts are critical. And you use the app, which is awesome because it clearly identifies the landowner. They update it regularly. But have you ever come into a situation where you can't find the real landowner, or it's listed as a corporation or something else?
Yeah, and that can take a little bit of digging. I will quite often just Google the if it's a company name, and with that, sometimes you'll find an article written about that company, and you'll be able to see who the owner of that company is. So Google is a handy tool. Another one which can be helpful if it's a landowner that you can't find that name is if you can find relations or what you think are possibly relations in and around the area, and then go through them and say, hey, I found this Dave, whatever. Are you related to Dave? And and as a last resort, sometimes I even use obituaries. I don't mean to be morbid, but it's a great way to see who knows who and who is related to who. And it can lead you down a path to find who's related to that landowner. And generally, they're very agreeable to talking about giving you access. And it always helps if you start with, I'm sorry for your loss.
Right. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you is what is one of the most interesting ways you've ever found a landowner or got permission? And searching the obituaries certainly would fall into the top 10 that I've ever heard. So
yeah,
that's a creative way of doing it.
Unique, but it has paid off on more than like a handful of occasions. Absolutely.
Right. Now, if you had the choice, would you meet with a landowner face to face, or would you prefer just to call them to get it locked up and know what's going on?
I like meeting landowners, but again, I'm a very social person. I could understand someone just wanting to do it over the phone, but I've even suggested if I've gone through the phone method, especially now with COVID, I have asked them, would you like us to touch base with you at all? And if they say yes, then we have gone to their farmstead even during this spring goose hunt. It was COVID season, and we definitely still met with a landowner. We thanked him for his permission and talked about how we were cooking the goose, and if he ever has goose, does he enjoy goose himself, and those kinds of things. So I still enjoy meeting landowners, but I could understand if you're not quite that social person, you just want to do it over the phone. There's nothing wrong with that. But even with that, a phone call after your hunt goes a long way to just giving that relationship a little extra boost that, they didn't just get what they wanted and now they're gone. They got what they wanted and they thanked me for it. If the need comes up again, I'm going to say yes to them.
Yeah, and I think that all relates back to that common respect for people. It's their land. They're going out of their way to allow you access to it. I don't think that most Albertans realize it, but we are so fortunate here in our province. I get to hunt across North America, and there's lots of places where you cannot set foot on private property without paying what they call in the States an access fee. And it's a lot of money. It would mean that most of the people I know and most of my family and friends would not get to hunt very often. So it's something that we never take for granted, and I genuinely appreciate any landowner that will give me permission. Now, if the listeners are looking for more ideas on approaching landowners, getting permission, the tools that you need, there is some more information and where to find it.
This podcast was made possible by Alberta Conservation Association and the Harvest Your Own community. If you're interested in harvesting your own food, There's a comprehensive collection of information. To gain insight and knowledge, head to the field, harvest your own protein, prepare it, and taste the results. HarvestYourOwn.ca is a library of information, from getting started and geared up to processing, butchering, and cooking wild game to make the connection between health and food.
Well, and it's easy for you and I to talk about the bird hunting because we've done a fair bit of it together this spring. You know, you talked about spring snows, and we accessed several properties where the swaths were in there, and you talked about landowners and have they ever eaten geese? And quite often you go back and give some birds to the landowners that are cleaned up.
Yeah, and basically I'm so proud of the harvest, and I want to share that with them. And like, if I can bring more people to want to harvest geese, there's lots of geese out there.
Oh, yeah.
We can share. So to create something tasty, and pulled goose is an easy one. Pulled barbecue goose, it's just like pulled pork. And to create that and bring them a package of that and just say, you know, if you want your bun toasted, toast your bun. And if you don't, just put it on your bun and add a slice of cheese, and you got yourself a great pulled goose barbecue sandwich. And yeah, I've even had them call me later and go, this was amazing. I fed it to my nephew. He didn't even realize it was goose. And yeah, like, those are the things I love to do to add to that. It's not only my harvest and what I'm getting from my family, but I'm sharing that with others and letting them know that this is a wonderful food source. Let's all take advantage of it. There's so many birds out there.
Yes, and it is interesting. Like, once you find a few recipes that really work for you and your family, you embrace the hunt and everything even more. You know, you want to go out and get access. You start counting how many birds you have put away for the year because you're, I think it's the old pioneer instinct kicks in, and you just want to take care of your own personal needs or wants. So there's never enough birds in our house. We love the fall seasons and the spring snow goose seasons. One question I often get is it easier to get permission for bird hunting than big game?
For me, I would say yes. But we've been lucky in that we know a lot of people who let us hunt the larger game. But what I've also found is through the waterfowl hunting, I've had landowners actually ask me, hey, do you also hunt deer? Because we have a lot of deer here, and you're welcome to come back. And another guy had obviously lost a friend or someone to a moose, and he said, and if you ever hunt moose, you're welcome to come. If I have moose, I'll call you. So yeah,
those are great problems to have,
right? Like, the relationship we built with the landowners through waterfowl has translated into large game access as well.
Right. And a lot of times we cultivate those relationships. How often do you go out and hunt the same fields or same farms, because it might be barley one year and canola the next, but how often do you have contact with the same landowners year after year? Very
much so. And I actually have one landowner who only gives access to me and my family. So it's remarkable. He will text me. We saw some geese. He will text me also regarding his brother's fields. So he has a relationship with me through the brother to say, yeah, they're on his fields this year, so go for it. And that piece has been fantastic with that one landowner that he's just giving us sole access.
That's very helpful, and that's why I really like having you as almost like my personal spotter.
Yeah.
All joking aside, it does make a big difference, and it's those relationships that you cultivate that lead to that. It didn't happen the first time, but you know, you keep going back, you keep showing respect, you let them know when you go in, you let them know when you come out, and all of a sudden they have a whole different respect for you as a hunter, and you're almost like an extra set of eyes and ears on their property.
Yes, like I say, he told us when he had geese in his field. He apologized to me the one year for planting canola. It's like, the geese aren't going to be in there, but I had to do a year of canola. I'm like, that's okay. It's your land, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, often when we get permission for birds, some people might not think it's appropriate, but I always make sure I say, would you please hold that field for us? Because a landowner doesn't always know how a goose hunt works. And if somebody else shows up half an hour later and says, we'd like to shoot that, and they say, well, we have it tied up for Saturday. And another hunter might say, well, we'll come and hunt it tomorrow and not Saturday, in which case they normally bump the geese out of there. So it's important to not tell landowners what their restrictions are on their land, but tell them what you need in order to make it be successful for yourself.
Yeah, that has happened to us on one occasion. We had booked a Saturday, and then I was just coming again. Like I say, it's nice to go, if you've seen them on the Thursday, come the Friday, and then plan for the Saturday. Well, same thing had happened, as you said. Someone else came in and said, well, we'll hunt it on Friday. And he said, yeah, that should work because we don't have anyone until Saturday.
Right. And
so, yeah, that has become part of the booking procedure with a landowner, is to say, you know, if you allow another hunter, which is perfectly your prerogative, it's your land, we won't come because it'll move the geese and it won't work for us. And it's kind of been educating the landowners as to, exactly what your needs are for a successful hunt.
Yeah, and once they understand that, they're more than willing to help work with you, and they actually safeguard it. They watch for people that might actually bump them or, disturb them in some way, and let them know that field is tied up and people are anxious to get back out there in a day. Yeah,
we've had that as well.
So when we ask for birds, we normally go in, we hunt the birds, we bump them out. We're lucky if they come back in 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe we can shoot it again. During a season in one field, you might get out there 2 or 3 times if you're lucky. Big game, when you go ask permission for big game, do you ask for a day, for the week, for the season? What do you normally do?
Generally, we try for a week, but again, it's their land and you don't want to reserve it per se. But definitely we'll tell them that, we need to get a sense of where they're using your area. We saw them here, so this is the plan. But it'll also depend on what the wind is doing the next day for how you need to approach the field and work a chunk of bush or whatever. So, we've done exactly that, is to say, would we be able to hunt your land for this week, and basically give them that scenario that says we'd like to hunt it hard this week, and if you could keep other hunters off, that will really help us be successful.
Right, and I always ask them if I can have their cell phone number or something so that I can just text them and let them know that I am coming, or if I'm changing plans, or if I've been out there and they, if they see tracks, they know who it is, and it's again, just common respects. If it was your own property, you'd want to know who was out there, what's going on. So keeping them updated on your activities is also a wise plan for future access.
Yes, and a description of the truck. Like quite often, if you're going to be there with the same truck each time, they actually start to recognize it. But if you have a family member coming in, then you might also say, and there's going to be this red Dodge, that's my father-in-law, and, right. So that they also get a sense of who's out there.
Yes, so I think we've covered private land access real well, but I think it's also important to mention that 60% of Alberta's crown land. You can access it, most of it's foot access, some areas you can drive, but there's lease land as well. And if you want to go to Alberta Public Lands, they have tools on there where you can look at all the leases in Alberta that are for agriculture to provide access to those lands as well. So there's an awful lot of land in Alberta that we can access. Another good source of information is Alberta Conservation Association has the Discover Guide. It's got over 780 conservation properties in the province owned by Alberta Conservation, Alberta Fish and Game, Ducks Unlimited, and it's got aerial maps, driving instructions, and even brief descriptions about what you'll find there. And I don't want you to mention any property names, but I do believe you have seen some big bucks on some of those lands.
I harvested a buck, a beautiful buck off of an ACA property. And it's a beautiful chunk of land and well worth going to. But there are so many great ACA properties in that Discover Guide. And one thing that's really nice about that Discover Guide is if you know sort of roughly where you're going to hunt, you can type in a town name and it will give you all the sites that are within however many kilometers you specify. And it just really gives you a sense of how many places there are to go. And if you're not seeing anything in one place, you only have to drive a few kilometers, and find another site to walk around. So the Discover Guide is a very good thing, and you can get the phone app. So it's easy to find properties close to your location.
Right. It's really set up well as a tool for hunters to find access if they don't have a place to go, or if they're looking for a unique property that has the habitat that will actually cultivate those animals on site. So, Linda, I really want to thank you for being a part of our podcast today. Your information is a great source of inspiration and knowledge for people to go out and find a hunt, ask permission, and make it all happen and put it together.
Well, you're very welcome. One thing I did want to say is not everybody says yes, and relax with that. It's not the end of the world if someone says no. There's lots of birds. There's lots of land. Keep looking and keep asking.
Great advice. Thanks for coming on to the podcast today, and I hope to have you back to talk about Kona and retrieving dogs in the bird world. We hope to inspire people to reconnect with nature and appreciate where your food comes from by harvesting your own. For more information on getting started or to learn specifics about the Field to Fork experience, visit harvestyourown.ca and follow on Facebook and Instagram. Check back often for new material, recipes, and videos that are posted regularly. Please subscribe to Harvest Your Own podcast and take the time to rate and review the show to help us build a dedicated core of passionate hunters as our regular audience. Until next time, embrace the outdoors and all it has to offer. Thanks for joining us.